All right, so today we're diving deep into the story of Ross Ulbricht.
Ah, Ross Ulbricht. Now there's a name that sends shivers down the spine of the internet.
Yeah, his name popped up again recently, right? With that presidential pardon from Trump.
Exactly. And that's just one layer of this incredibly fascinating story. We're talking Bitcoin, dark web, you name it.
It's like a real-life thriller, isn't it? But to understand the pardon, we got to go back.
Back to the beginning.
Right. Who was this guy? What did he actually DO to get a life sentence?
Well, on the surface, Ross Ulbricht was, well, kind of a normal dude. Studied physics, got his master's degree.
Not exactly the image of a criminal mastermind, huh?
Not at all. But remember, the early Bitcoin world was filled with these, idealists.
People drawn to the idea of disrupting systems, challenging the status quo.
Precisely. And Ulbricht was definitely one of them. But his passion for liberty and privacy, those early Bitcoin ideals, took a pretty dark turn.
And that turn led him to create
Yeah.
Silk Road.
Silk Road. The name itself sounds mysterious, almost mythical, right?
Yeah, almost romantic in a way. But this was no fairy tale.
Far from it. Imagine you log on to this hidden corner of the internet. You need a special browser, Tor, to even get there.
So we're already talking about a level of secrecy most people wouldn't even know exists.
Absolutely. And once you're in, it's almost like a regular online marketplace. Products, reviews, the whole 9 yards.
It's like an anonymous Amazon.
Kinda, yeah. But the products, they were anything but ordinary. We're talking illegal goods, primarily drugs.
Whoa, this is where we enter the dark web, right?
The underbelly of the internet, a place shrouded in darkness, very hard to police.
And this was Ulbricht's creation. Silk Road was his baby.
Under the alias Dread Pirate Roberts.
Ah, so that's where that name comes from.
Yep. Customers could buy anything from, well, let's just say a wide variety of substances, all using Bitcoin.
Delivered right to their doorstep completely anonymously. This had to have a huge impact on, well, everything.
Oh, absolutely. The scale of Silk Road was massive. Millions of dollars flowing through.
And nobody knew who was behind it all.
That's the beauty and the danger of Bitcoin. It's pseudonymous, meaning transactions are recorded, but not directly linked to your identity.
A dream for criminals and a headache for law enforcement.
Exactly. It made Bitcoin both attractive and controversial in its early days.
And eventually, that anonymity crumbled. They caught Ulbricht, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, in 2013, a San Francisco library, of all places.
A library. Talk about ironic. The mastermind behind this massive online drug empire caught in the place of knowledge and learning. What a visual.
The FBI were ecstatic, obviously. Silk Road was finally shut down.
And what about Ulbricht? What happened to him?
Well, the consequences were severe. He was found guilty of multiple charges, including narcotics distribution and engaging in a criminal enterprise.
And they didn't go easy on him, did they?
Not at all. 2 life sentences plus 40 years handed down in 2015.
2 life sentences plus 40 years. That's intense. The
Yeah.
government was making a statement, huh?
Absolutely. They saw him as someone who was profiting from addiction, someone who, in their eyes, had blood on his hands.
They wanted to send a message.
No doubt about it. Silk Road might have championed freedom, privacy, all those things. But ultimately, in the eyes of the law, it was a criminal enterprise.
And they threw the book at him.
They did indeed.
But here's the thing. The story doesn't end there. Because along with shutting down Silk Road, authorities seized a massive amount of Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah, a huge amount. We're talking 173,991 Bitcoins.
Whoa. And at the time, that was worth, what, like $30 million?
$33.6 million to be exact.
Which, if you do the math, translates to, well, over $18 billion today.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it? The biggest Bitcoin seizure in history, just sitting in government wallets.
So what happens to all that Bitcoin? Does the government just hold on to it?
That's the billion-dollar question, and it really highlights the unique problems cryptocurrencies create for law enforcement.
It's a whole new world, isn't it? The Wild West of finance.
Exactly, and the Silk Road case. That was just the beginning.
It's crazy to think about how the Silk Road case, even though it was this illegal operation, really brought Bitcoin into the spotlight.
Oh, totally. Before Silk Road, Bitcoin was this niche thing, right? And then suddenly, bam, it's all over the news.
Yeah, it was like the poster child for everything shady and dangerous on the internet.
For some people, absolutely. But it also kind of validated Bitcoin for a lot of people in the crypto community.
So you're saying even though Silk Road was this illegal marketplace, it somehow proved that Bitcoin could actually work.
In a way, yeah. It showed how Bitcoin could handle huge volumes of transactions, completely outside of the traditional banking system.
So it was like a real-world test, even if it was for illegal stuff.
Exactly. And the fact that it was decentralized, nobody could shut it down. Not banks, not governments. That really appealed to the cypherpunk ethos.
Yeah, that whole idea of freedom from control, financial privacy, it's a powerful concept.
Extremely powerful. And Silk Road brought those concepts to the forefront, whether people liked it or not.
Okay, but what about after Silk Road got shut down? Did the dark web just disappear?
Not a chance. If anything, it became even stronger. More marketplaces popped up. They learned from Silk Road's mistakes.
So it became like this endless game of whack-a-mole, with law enforcement trying to shut them down and new ones constantly appearing.
Yep. It's pretty hard to police a network that's designed to be anonymous and decentralized.
I bet that was a wake-up call for law enforcement agencies around the world.
Oh, absolutely. The Silk Road case forced them to adapt, to think outside the box. They had to develop new tools, new strategies to tackle cybercrime.
And it showed that this wasn't just a local problem anymore.
Right, the dark web is global, it's interconnected, so law enforcement had to start working together, sharing information, coordinating efforts.
It's incredible to think about the ripple effects from this one case, centered around this one guy, Ross Ulbricht. It changed the way we think about Bitcoin, it changed the dark web, it even changed the way law enforcement operates.
It's a perfect example of how something that starts small, something that might even seem insignificant at first, can end up having these massive global consequences.
And speaking of consequences,
Yeah.
we can't forget about that presidential pardon Ulbricht received from Trump, right?
Oh, yeah. That definitely threw a wrench in the narrative, didn't it?
Totally. You mentioned earlier that Trump campaigned on this idea of supporting the digital asset industry, right?
Yeah.
Was that pardon? Like him fulfilling that promise?
It's certainly possible. Trump had said before that he thought Ulbricht's sentence was way too harsh.
Interesting. So there's the legal side of things, the
Yep.
crime and punishment. But then there's this whole other layer of politics, power dynamics, all that stuff.
Absolutely. And you can't forget the personal aspect either. You have this young guy, driven by ideals, who ends up creating this platform with huge consequences. He gets punished severely, and then years later, a controversial pardon throws everything into question. That's a wild story.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? About the ethics of technology, about the role of government, about the balance between freedom and security.
Big questions, for sure. And questions that don't have easy answers. But that's what makes the Silk Road saga so fascinating. It forces us to grapple with these complex issues, these gray areas. It challenges our assumptions about the world.
It feels like the Silk Road story, even after all these years, is still relevant, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Because at its core, it's about this fundamental question, like, can we actually control technology?
Especially decentralized tech. It feels like once it's out there, it's out there. No taking it back.
That's the thing with decentralization, right? It's like this Pandora's box. Once it's open,
There's no closing it.
nope. And that's both exciting and terrifying.
Because on one hand, we've seen the dark side, right? The
Yeah.
potential for harm, the illegal marketplaces, all that.
Right, Silk Road being the prime example.
But then there's the flip side, the potential for good, for positive change.
Empowering individuals, increasing transparency, creating new systems that are more fair, more equitable.
It's almost like we're at this crossroads, this pivotal moment in history.
We are. We're figuring out in real time how to navigate this uncharted territory. It's not just about the technology itself, it's about the choices we make.
Right, the ethics, the regulations, the whole shebang. And it's not just up to governments or big tech companies to figure this out, is it?
Not at all. It's on all of us. Every individual using this technology has a role to play.
It's like this collective responsibility to ensure the technology is used for good, for progress.
Exactly. And that's not always easy. There are going to be tough choices, gray areas, ethical dilemmas.
Are all figuring it out as we go. And stories like Silk Road, they're like cautionary tales. They remind us of the stakes.
They show us what can happen when things go wrong, but they also highlight the incredible power of human ingenuity, the resilience of the internet.
Because even after Silk Road was shut down, the dark web didn't disappear, did it?
No way. It adapted, it evolved, it came back stronger. Kind of like a hydra, cut off one head, two more grow back.
And Bitcoin. It's not just for criminals anymore, is it?
Not even close. It's become this global phenomenon, this asset class that institutions are investing in.
It's gone mainstream.
Totally. And that's what makes this whole story so fascinating. It's about so much more than just one guy, one website, one cryptocurrency.
It's a story about the future. our future.
And it's a story that's still being written.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the Silk Road saga.
Yeah, I think we've all learned a lot today.
If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the wild world of technology, society, and the future.
We've got some amazing episodes coming up, topics that are going to blow your mind.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.